I mean, it was like, it wasn't.
Are you good?
And then it started, and they were, oh yeah.
You did a good job. I'd like to call the Maumelle City Council meeting to order. The first order of business is Councilmember Saunders just contacted me about 20 minutes ago, said he didn't think he would be here. If he is here, he'll be running late, so due to a family issue that they were having. And then next order of business is invocation and pledge of allegiance, and I've asked Councilmember Vapurzian to lead us in that tonight.
Father, we love you. We thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunities that have been provided for us. And I ask that you would be with us this evening as we have decisions to make. We ask that you would guide our thoughts. Our thoughts turn into actions, and actions will determine our destinies. And so we need you to guard our minds and help us to think clearly, to see things that will benefit our city. Our thoughts and prayers are with all those in California with these raging wildfires that are astronomical in number. It's hard for us to imagine that 30,000 acres a day is being destroyed by these fires. And Lord, I pray for the uniformed personnel on the ground, the firefighters, for their safety, for these who are in harm's way, that you would protect them. We're thankful for the freedoms that we have brought to us by the men and women willing to sacrifice their lives for our protection. We ask for their safety and their protection, and then for our uniformed personnel here in Maumelle, that you would guide and protect them. Bless this evening all the decisions that we make. May we honor and glorify you. It's in Jesus' name I ask it. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no special guests and announcements tonight, and we have the approval of the minutes of the July 2nd regular meeting. Those minutes are in your packet. Is there any corrections or additions to those minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as submitted. Is there a discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item is public comment. And I have two public comment cards, and one is on an agenda item and one is not on an agenda item. I've added it to my comments, but at this time, we'll hear from Judge Rita Bailey with Maumelle District Court.
Good evening. I decided to come here today. I think the mayor and I have come to what I'm going to consider an agreement regarding what's going on with the court. There were some concerns about some cleanup that needed to be done, and possibly some building repairs. I think that we've come to an agreement that will probably need to be in the best interest of court personnel and those that are invited to come there, that we go ahead and move to City Hall. I don't think it's going to be cost effective at this time to clean the building to the extent that would be necessary, that would be satisfactory to us. So I'm coming here because I'm anticipating, we keep talking about money, that I may have some budget resolution issues, requests that may come down the pipeline. We've talked tacitly about possibly how we could pay for much of it, but I just wanted to make sure I gave you guys, the city council, a heads up about that concern, because I know money is a real big deal. And if that may be possibly coming down the pipeline, I wanted to tell you that that may be an issue, something I may have to ask for in the future. Any questions, concerns?
Councilmember Vapurzian.
To you or to the judge, do you know how much money it would take to repair the current facility?
Well, we have some rodents, and so there are a lot of rodents, and so it's going to cost over $3,000 to just clean the courts side, and we're going to have to replace every ceiling tile in there, which is another $3,000, and that's not cleaning the old fire side where there's also rats in that area, and so Miss Bailey did not feel like she felt like if we only cleaned the court sides, we'd still have the issue on the other side of the wall, basically,
Yes.
Yeah.
which so roughly it's $6,000 to do just the court side right now. And it'd be more than that if we go to the other side. We can move them cheaper than that based on what we have learned today.
Okay.
My concern was that doing half of it wasn't going to be enough. And it wasn't going to be sufficient at all.
And I didn't see the light till today. I will say that.
Thank you. We brought him back, and I showed him. Showed him some demonstrative,
Hang on, we've got, Judge, we've still got some more lights
I
on.
showed him some real live
Oh,
evidence.
they weren't live.
It wasn't live,
Okay.
but I think
Councilmember
it was
Scott?
enough to convince him.
You know, we have the bond for the remodel for the city hall, and part of that was incorporating courts. Can some of that money be used for the move, or
I
is
don't
it
know
outside
that
of
we can use it for the move necessarily, but if we need to do some renovations, we could use it for that.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
You can turn mine on.
okay, yeah. I don't think we can do it for the move, but we can do some renovations down there with that fund.
Good deal.
Yeah. The first issue we've got is trying to get phone lines and internet and all that there, and Ms. Timmons has started on that process today. So, and AT&T doesn't move with the speed of light, even though their data does, but it's just going to take a little while to get that done, so.
But I think the request is being made. Right.
Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm sorry you had to endure that. I had no idea.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
How long has it been going on?
Well, I don't think we, honestly, we didn't realize that we had a problem to this magnitude until about June. We didn't even know then, but June the 1st, when we had to have some work done on, we were trying to get help with our surveillance cameras. And by chance moved some ceiling tiles.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, I'm answering the question. We moved some ceiling tiles like June the 1st, and then some things fell.
You had some surprises. Yep.
And then it just kind of, called pest control, and we got a response. They came and just tossed some stuff up in the ceiling to address it. But then it just it got worse and worse.
All right.
That was just the beginning. We just didn't realize the magnitude of it.
Makes you go home.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Nothing else. All right. Thank you.
All right,
Are we supposed to pass this around?
the next item is financial statement review, and that is done at the second meeting of each month. Next item is departmental reports, and that's done at the first meeting. So I've asked our finance director, Ms. Shannon Vega, to give you a report tonight. She comes before you and gives you financial reports on a regular basis, but this is to report on her department, so.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So we've got a lot of changes going on in the accounting department. I just celebrated my 1 year here with the city,
Anniversary.
Glad to have you.
and I'm very happy to be here. We've restructured the accounting department to streamline and increase our workflow. September 1st, CAW, as you know, is going to be handling our billing, and we anticipate that there's going to be a substantial increase in our receivables. And this is because it's been mentioned, but I've verified it. So any money that comes in to CAW for that customer, it first pays our garbage, and then it pays their water. So that alone is going to increase our revenue substantially. But due to those changes and the increase in work capacity that we're going to have with all that going away, all that money coming in, having to process that, having to process invoices, our billing position has been eliminated. And then after that happened, our accounts payable coordinator, she got a new job within the city in another department. She's moved over to animal control and super excited about that. And so we had an open position. It's already been filled, and our new coordinator starts August 20th. So we're real excited about her coming to the team. Let's see. We are continuing to cross-train our staff. Amanda is working with us as well for backup, and we're very grateful for that. And we're continuing to improve our internal controls. So that's all I've got. Does anybody have any questions?
Councilmember Holt?
During the audit review in the last meeting, I believe you had made mention that there are some adjustments that will be needing to be made, changes, is that right, in our audit process? Did I hear that right?
Yes, sir.
And are those, I assume, sounds like they're going to be on the way right away, or you're done with those or whatever?
No, we're still working on it. I owe the auditors some information as well as some of the other departments, but we're working on that daily. So
do we anticipate the audit?
I don't have a date
Okay,
of when it's going to be ready.
I appreciate it. Thank you. You're doing an awesome job, and we're so very pleased.
Thank
with
you. I appreciate that.
Councilmember Scott?
Yeah, I'm very glad to have you, and happy anniversary.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your new hire and the streamlining of your department. So I think those are going to be some great changes.
Yeah, we've
and
got
to
a
be
great
able to-
team.
Be able to get a lot of work done. And you're making progress, I believe, on reconciling the spreadsheet that we use for budget so that the numbers
Yes,
reflected
sir.
are more.
I mean, yes, ma'am.
more ac- yeah.
Yes, I've actually started working on that already because the mayor and I have put together the preliminary calendar for the budget process.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, the other questions for Ms. Vega? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is a procedural motion. We need a motion from the floor to read all resolutions and ordinances by title only tonight.
Second.
We have a motion second to read all resolutions and ordinances by title only tonight. Is there a discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. We have no unfinished business. Moving on to new business. We have the resolution number 2018-21, amend the name of the Public Works Building. Madam City Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, Pulaski County, Arkansas, resolution number 2018-21, a resolution naming the Public Works Building the Robert Cogdell Public Works Complex.
And this is a resolution that's sponsored by Councilmember Holt, so I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. During the Memorial Day service, Ms. Jan Hogue greeted me and asked me to consider or see about having the building named after Mr. Robert Cogdell. I told her I would be more than happy to sponsor the resolution. I never knew Mr. Cogdell. I did have the honor of attending the funeral. It was obvious that he was a greatly loved and respected member of the city government. So I felt like that it was appropriate that we consider to him. I have also asked Ms. Hogue, if I may, Mr. Mayor, to approach the podium and share with the members of the council her thoughts about him being honored as so.
Okay, yeah, and she filled out a card, so yes, Ms. Hogue, if you want to come forward. State your name and address for the record, please, if you would. Kind of hard to call her Miss. I called her Alderman.
This side feels kind of strange. Jan Hogue, 134 Apple Blossom Loop. I did speak with Alderman Holt in, I guess it was May. It was the Memorial Day ceremony about sponsoring a resolution to name the Public Works Complex after Mr. Cogdell and call it the Robert Cogdell Public Works Complex, which would encompass all of the Public Works building. I do realize that we have a small street, a short street named after him, but it's important to me to do more. I think it's important to other people in Maumelle. And so I'm just going to ask for your consideration. I hope you can support the
resolution, and I know you've all read it and probably already have a pretty good idea of what you want to do. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Hogue. Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion that we accept Resolution 2018-21.
We have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2018-21. Is there any discussion on that motion? Councilmember Scott?
Beverly Masters, former city clerk for 25 years and very, very good friend of Mr. Cogdell's, has written a little something that she asked me to read tonight.
Okay.
She says, Honorable Mayor Watson and City Council, I apologize for not being able to attend this meeting in person to express my support in the adoption of the resolution naming the Public Works Complex in memory of Robert Cogdell. It wasn't because Beverly had a conflict. She said that she was just so emotional about it that she knew she couldn't stand up here and make this statement without bursting into tears. So she's very sincere about this. Robert spent 47 years working in Maumelle. He started working for Jess Odom in 1971 as an equipment operator. In May of 1986, he became an employee of the newly incorporated city of Maumelle as Public Works Director. He took this department from operating out of a former military barracks built in the mid-1940s and heated by wood-burning stoves to a modern, efficient facility that he was very proud of. Robert set very high standards for himself and his staff. He met every challenge placed before him. He strived to provide the citizens of Maumelle with excellent services ranging from street, right-of-way, and drainage maintenance to curbside household waste and recycling pickup. Robert also supervised the animal control department. Robert would have been the first to give credit to the employees and city management he worked with over the years for his success, and successful he was. Robert was a humble man who loved his work and only wanted to do his job well. He would have been a bit embarrassed by this attention, but at the same time very proud to have his name placed on the complex. Robert was more than a city employee. He was my friend for over 30 years, a friend that I admired and respected, a friend that I could count on, a man that Maumelle could count on. I was very fortunate to have known Robert, and I miss him every day. Beverly. I ask the council to remember and honor Robert with the passage of this resolution. I didn't do much better than she did.
Are there any other comments? If not, all those in favor of resolution number 2018-21, please signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item is resolution number 2018-22, approving a conditional use permit. Madam City Clerk, if you read that by title only.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, Pulaski County, Arkansas, resolution number 2018-22, a resolution granting a conditional use permit to the Christian Life Church to locate a church in a C2 zoning district.
Okay, we have representatives from the church here and also from the real estate firm, if there's any questions for them. Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. I was wondering what part of the building they might occupy and whether they're going to actually be buying the building or just leasing.
Okay. Mr. Neri, do you want to take that, or do you want someone from the?
Yes, sir, I'll do that.
Okay.
Jim Neri, Director of Planning and Zoning. They are purchasing the entirety of the building. They're going to use just a bit of the west side of the building for their church services, while leaving most of the east side and the center side available for further leasing to attract other businesses.
I drove by there today. There's a company called Sync or something like that. I can't remember what it was, in that far western part. It's a smaller facility, so I guess they'll occupy that. I guess that's unoccupied right now.
The way I remember it, I remember the old family video.
Yeah.
When I first came to Maumelle, that's what was in there. And that was their offices, if I remember correctly, and then the print shop. But they're not really going to occupy even half the building, at least for now, for their church services, because their congregation may grow.
And there's nobody currently occupying the building?
No,
Yeah.
sir.
All right,
They're taking it all.
okay, that's fine, thank you very
Yes,
much.
sir.
Councilmember Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know in the meeting, when, for the Planning Commission meeting, there was some contingency on fire and code. I'm assuming that that's been met before it came before our council.
There should have been something in your packet from
Did I miss that?
Fire Marshal John Payne. All of those issues have been satisfied.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just overlooked
No,
that.
no, no, that's quite all right. And I probably should make mention of this, Mr. Mayor, with your permission. For further conditional uses that come before you, in reality, what the Planning Commission recommends and what you ultimately vote on one way or the other is that particular entity or that particular business, is it a good fit for this property that it's on? Not really any fire code or building code issues there may be. In other words, they may never get to move in there, whoever is going for the conditional use permit. But that's really not the charge of the Planning Commission, or in my opinion, yours. Is that particular entity a good fit for this property? And that's all. Now, in this case, of course, it's all very important that they do pass these things, which they have. But using that as a contingency for a do pass recommendation to you all, or ultimately if you pass the resolution or not, probably does not apply. Because if you look at the ordinance, all they have to produce if the space or the property they want to locate on has not been reviewed, then they have to produce a site plan and a landscape plan. If in fact in this area, which has been reviewed, they don't have to produce that. In this case, they produced a survey. That's all they have to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Williams?
Mr. Neri, I'm sorry, just stay put. The CUP, is it for an amount of time, and that has to be redone or renewed, or?
Well, no.
It's
This
forever?
conditional
As long
use
as they're
permit
there?
is good for the Christian Life Church only, and only at this location. In their case, they were at Maumelle Corners. They received a conditional use permit in 2016 to locate there. Well, now they want to locate somewhere else, so it doesn't move with them. They have to get another conditional use permit. Because, as you can imagine, this business or church or whatever, it might have been just fine right here, and there may have been no issues, but 300 feet to the south, there may be issues. So it's only good for that particular entity at that particular location.
And they're not even looking at the property across the parking lot? It's just this?
Just this.
Okay, okay.
Just this. Their survey shows they have about 35 parking spaces, which right now, according to our ordinance, is about 4 times more than they need. So, but hopefully they'll grow.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Whoa.
Got one more light. Mr. Neri.
Who's up?
Councilmember Saunders?
Thank you, Mayor. You just thought you were going to get away. I'm just curious about the building. Now, that entire building is empty at this time.
Yes, sir.
And I can't remember for the love of me how long, but it seems to me it's been a long time empty. Do you know approximately?
Yes, I do. The last business license fee that the print shop paid was in the fall of 2014. So that was it.
Yeah. It had been a long time. Sure would be nice to see something go in there and occupy that space for.
I think you will.
Yeah.
I think you will.
Okay, thank you. That's all
Yes,
I
sir.
needed.
He's looking around.
Do any of the pastor or the members of the church need to speak or want to speak, or you're happy? Okay, all right. All right. Councilmember Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Make a motion that we accept Resolution 2018-22.
We have a motion and a second to accept resolution number 2018-22. Is there a discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item is resolution number 2018-23, approving a preliminary development plan. Madam City Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas. A resolution to be entitled Resolution Number 2018-23, approving the preliminary development plan of Carnahan Village subdivision.
The developer and the engineers are in the audience if there's any questions for them. This is the owner and developer, I guess. Maybe it's even more so the owner. Hopefully, I guess.
Resolution 2018-23.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 2018-23. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. And y'all are welcome to leave if y'all want to. You can stay if you want to, so. Next item is resolution number 2018-24, amending the 2018 general fund budget. Madam City Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, Pulaski County, Arkansas. A resolution to be entitled Resolution Number 2018-24, a resolution to amend the 2018 Maumelle General Fund budget.
Okay, you have a memo from Chief Ezel in your packet, and I'll let him just come up and simplify the memo maybe, or just give you the short version of it there. But we had an issue with a brush truck, and so that's why we're here today.
Absolutely. In 2015, we were notified by Arkansas Forestry that we had received an 84 Chevy C10 4x4 that I guess Chief Glenn had put in for. At the time, we had an F-350, just a regular gas burner that was a dually on the back. At that time, we decided to take the dually out of service as a brush truck and put this in service, so we slid the skid unit out of one and put it into this one. We have since turned the dually into a squad that actually gained the points we needed to get us down to the ISO 2. So taking that back and putting it back in service as a brush truck is just not viable. But this Chevy 4x4, it's a 1984, it's a military surplus vehicle that we got from forestry for a cost of about $4,600 back in 2015. Roughly a month and a half ago, we started having some electrical issues. We took it to a shop. They had it at the shop for about a month and a half. We're starting to try to wire around the fuse box that was in there, and the fuse box actually, my guess is some young kid in the military kept thinking, all right, I'm tired of this truck that keeps coming back blowing fuses, so they just kept stepping up the size of the fuse to the point where how this thing didn't catch on fire, I don't know, but it melted every stitch of wiring all the way across the dash inside. So the gentleman tried to wire around it, and whenever he realized that he was actually trying to pull some extra wire through the dash to try to do some soldering and try to work around it, and he couldn't get any extra wire to come out. So he takes the dash apart, and the whole thing is melted together over there. So I went out to Camp Robinson and actually spoke to the military mechanics out there. They said you're not going to find one of those wiring harnesses anywhere for the military surplus vehicles. We started calling around, and everybody we talked to on the mechanic side of things said the exact same thing. So it is basically a truck that is useless to us now. It is ours. It is the city of Maumelle's, so we can surplus that out. But what we're looking for is a single rear axle truck that's a four-wheel drive, and we have looked everywhere across the United States. The one that we found is actually in Illinois. It's got 64,000 miles on it. At a cost to us, they've said they could lower it. They've lowered it 3 times already, but they said they would lower it down to 30,000 for us if we could get that money together. It is red, so it does not have to be painted. The only other one that was halfway viable, but it was 42 grand, was gray in Memphis, Tennessee. These work trucks like that are single axle, they're just hard to come by. But in 30 years, 361 days of service in the fire service, the dualies get stuck. So I don't, that's why we wanted to go with the single axle vehicle. So, just as a matter of fact, we've had 28 outside or brush fires that a brush truck has responded on the last 2 years, 25 in the city of Maumelle and 3 outside the city of Maumelle. So without a brush vehicle in the city, we would have to rely on mutual aid from North Little Rock or Oak Grove to come in and help us put the fire out. But perfect, for instance, what you're seeing out in California is exactly what we have here. The wildland urban interface where you've got a bunch of trees and big forest right behind the residences is exactly what's going on out there. So that's really why we need this vehicle here, is just to make sure this doesn't happen to us here. There's actually a couple of neighborhoods I've driven around with the mayor before and said, we're one wind-driven fire away from burning down an entire city block in some areas of town. So, I'm open to questions of.
Okay. Councilmember Saunders?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, 2 things. One, do you think this would endanger our ISO 2 rating?
Do I think what?
If we don't replace this vehicle?
We don't have the brush truck? Not necessarily. Would it affect our ISO rating? But again, I can't go back and take the squad out of service, because the squad is actually, if our tower goes down tomorrow for some reason, the squad that we have, which is the old brush truck, actually has a bunch of ladders on it, has generators on it, it's got SCBAs on it, so it serves a purpose, a dual purpose, and actually the volunteers use it to respond in, but it also can serve as a backup to our tower that's here. But a brush truck, realistically, if we have something major, we get something in the woods, what was it, 2012, they had a big fire here where they actually had to do airdrops up on the hill by the water tower up here. So that's the situation I want to protect against by having this truck in service.
Plus, number 2, plus you indicated that there are areas that you're concerned about, wooded or wild areas close to residences, which could pose danger.
Right.
And you know me, I'm all into safety of citizens. That's job 1.
Right.
So.
We have one of the first purchases I made when I got here was a UTV because of all the walking trails that we have here. But it has a 50-gallon tank on it, so we can't put a lot of fire out with that. And right now, that's the only option we have to fight fire off the road. So
Indian pack.
we don't take it. Well, yeah, we don't take engines off the road. So
Okay.
that gets really expensive to get those out.
Yeah. Thanks, Chief.
Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand what a brush truck does. I'm assuming it's equipped, you talk about a skid that would be mounted on it or something?
Yes.
What
So
does that entail?
it's actually a skid unit. It's got a tank and it's got a pump on the back of it and a hose reel to where we can actually get out off the road. It's 4-wheel drive, so we're able to get up into the wooded area if we need to. It carries rakes, paddles, all kinds of stuff.
Can it be refilled by a fire truck? If it
Yeah.
runs out of water, it can go back
Right.
down to the street? It's sort of,
Correct.
okay, so it's kind of like a surgical strike thing. or
Yes.
something like that.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. And do we have to pay any money to outfit the thing, or is it,
No, sir.
okay, you just mount that?
It's already red. We've got a light bar on that truck and we've got the skid unit in the back. The only thing we'll be out is striping it and putting Maumelle Fire on the side of it, and we've got the money to cover that. I just don't have the $30,000 to cover that, my budget.
You may have already covered this, I may have just missed it, but is there any possibility you could take that dually, stick that skid on there and make it go for 4 or 5 months? Would that work?
That would actually affect our ISO rating because that squad got us the extra points we needed because it serves as a backup to our tower.
Okay.
So
So would you deem this as an emergency? I mean, is it
Yes.
something that just can't wait?
Yes.
When are the most fires? During the summer, like where we are?
Towards the, yeah, right where we're at, if we get a dry spell for a couple of weeks and don't get any rain.
What do you do if this happens? What, with the way you are right now?
Right now, it would be call Oak Grove and call North Little Rock to come into our city to help.
Okay. You have any idea what that truck sold for originally?
We actually built that truck on the Chevy website, and it's
I'm sorry,
it's
I meant
almost
the one you're about to buy.
yeah, it's almost $53,000 full price.
Okay.
So we're getting it for about 60% of the cost.
Yeah, it seems, boy, I'm not into trucks, but it sure seems like it's held its value pretty well.
Trucks do.
It has, and this truck is actually, it's from the north, so it's actually built with extra springs and everything for pushing a snowplow. So it's actually got better stability there.
Okay.
And we checked to make sure, they sent us pictures of the undercarriage to make sure everything wasn't rusted out, because a lot of times you get a truck from the north and you've got rust problems from the salt and everything on the roads. So.
Yeah, I actually hadn't decided how to vote at this point. I came in here tonight saying I was gonna vote against it, just because I don't like the mid-year stuff. And
I don't like it any more than you do.
I wanna see things go through the budget process. It seems like, I mean, we had a whole bunch of stuff here in the last couple of months, which I really objected to coming in at this time.
Right.
This sounds like actually a real emergency. So I'll flip a coin here in a few minutes.
All right.
And Chief and I talked about it. I mean, could we wait till next year? And neither one of us felt like we could. I mean, wait till the budget process, because neither one of us wanted to bring it forward either, but we felt like we had to, because typically brush fires that we've had in Maumelle, from my previous experience, start somewhere around July 1 through October, because that's just when you have the least amount of rain, July, August, and even on into September. Now, we've got a forecast of rain starting Wednesday, I think, for a lot of rain, but they also forecasted 4 inches of rain like a week and a half ago, and we didn't get any of that rain in Maumelle. So, but we're getting to the point, and the other thing is, if we call for Oak Grove, but they're fighting a brush fire out in their area, they can't come. So then you got to keep calling another department or another department, and if the closest department may be helping them, depending on the size of the fire, so then you may be calling somebody in western Pulaski County to come across the river and get here, and sometimes you don't have that much time.
We've actually, out of those 3 that were outside of the city, 2 of them were on Pinnacle Mountain the last couple of years, where we've actually sent our brush truck and the UTV down there to help them out on big fires they've had down there.
So you said we have about 28 brush fires a year we respond to?
The last 2 years, we've had 28, 25 in the city and 3 outside the city.
Each year?
No.
No, that's
For
combined.
a total of 2 years.
Yeah, it'd be like 14, it'd average just a little over 1 a month.
And if we get this truck, when would you have it all equipped and ready to roll?
Within 2 days, probably, of us getting it here.
So maybe, within 2 weeks you'd be ready?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, my plan right now is to drive up and get this thing and bring it back, so.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Vipers there?
I just think the difficult thing is knowing all the money we've signed checks to the last couple of months, saying here's another one, and then come budget season, remembering all the things that we've already done, because this is a capital improvement project that would come forward in October had it run the normal process. And that's the difficult thing that we face, that I face in my mind. If I were you, I would say the same thing, but I have difficulty in my mind relegating what is an actual emergency compared to what is an emergency to you is not an emergency to me, and therefore, so I try and see things out of everyone else's eyes. But it's a difficult decision to just stamp. I'm with you. That's an expensive truck, and I'm not into vehicles, but a 64,000 mile vehicle for 30,000. It is a lot of money. So it is a difficult decision, and I'm looking at you.
How are you going to vote? Can you
On a diesel vehicle, 64,000 miles is nothing.
Yeah.
Is there any way you could find a more used one, get it for, I mean, I've got a grandson not a grandson, but a nephew that drives a pickup truck that is pretty cool, and he bought it for $6,000.
Was it 4-wheel drive and diesel?
I
doubt it.
like I say, it's cool. I don't know.
Like I
what all
say, I've actually, we've looked all over the United States for used four-wheel drive, single axle pickups that are long beds. So it has to have a long bed for this skid unit to fit in the back of it. A short bed won't work. So
Do those things, are they going to encounter a lot of damage, scratches, stuff like that?
brush trucks,
Yeah.
absolutely, yes.
Well, I sure hate to see us buy one that's in that good a shape and beat it to death, but,
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess that's why you have one. I mean,
Well-
you buy them to beat up.
My truck sitting out there cost a lot more than $30,000.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, so it's four-wheel drive,
You try not to beat them up, but they will get scratched and they will get dinged.
and
But
it's not diesel, yeah, so,
Mine was 63.
Yeah,
yeah,
Trucks are
so,
expensive,
yeah.
real expensive.
and they hold their value.
They do hold their value, but mine is a short bed. My bed is 5.5 foot long is all my bed is, so, but I also have room to carry 4 people in it, so that's the slight difference, but,
Right.
yeah. Councilmember Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kind of got ahead of me. I was going to say I have a four-wheel drive pickup truck that costs a lot more than that, and it's not a diesel four-wheel drive. It actually is the same model as the mayor's.
Red, too.
It's
We
red.
could Use it.
But
was that an offer?
no, it was not. I love that truck. But to kind of piggyback off of the comment, is an emergency or non-emergency? Well, it's not an emergency when you don't have a fire in your backyard, but it is an emergency when you do.
Yes.
And the whole goal is to not have that emergency, not to have that situation where you have that fire in your
I
backyard.
think the easier thing for me to relegate now that we're talking is, this is not a new thing, this is a replacement thing.
Right.
Yes.
So if it was a new thing, if you were coming to me and saying.
That's
"Listen,
capital.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It makes more sense that way.
Yeah.
This isn't a new, you just dreamed this up. This is
No.
what we had and we need to replace it because this is the season.
Correct.
That makes more sense to me.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was going to go, is that this is something that we enjoyed having or had to in our arsenal to keep us safe, and now we don't. So we need to replace it.
Right.
Thank you. That's all I have.
And all I can say about that is I know since 1997, we've had a brush truck in our fleet. So, yeah. Councilmember Timmons?
I too came in thinking, there's no way, here we go again, spending money that wasn't in the budget. But with it being said that, this is something we have to have, the safety of the community, this is something we have to do. This is really
no-brainer.
not an option.
Trust me when I say, if I could have waited, I'd have waited. But we can't wait.
Councilmember Mosley?
How long have you suspected we might need another truck? When did this wiring issue begin?
This wiring issue on this vehicle, well, it's an 84 vehicle, but it started about a month and a half ago, and it was in the shop, and that gentleman thought he was going to be able to fix it, but he did not see the extent of the damage on the wiring harness.
Okay, so it's really only been within the last 2 or 3 weeks that you've realized you can't fix it? Is that-
About a week and a half ago, yeah.
Okay. I was certainly upset about all that mid-year stuff that we did. So anyway, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Holt?
Chief, I'm going to try to keep a straight face when I ask you this. We had the money appropriated for the training officer and the pensions for the medics, paramedics, and then that was $38,000. This is $30,000. My question is, do you anticipate anything else for this budget year coming up?
Certainly hope not. I did not anticipate this at all. It pained me very much to have to go to his office and tell him that I had a truck that was shot.
Will we get to take this out of the budget when we come to budget this fall?
That's a loaded question, right there.
I think that's for us to
Yeah, would you
decide.
be asking for a truck this December at budget time?
Brush truck, no, sir.
Well, if you didn't buy this now.
If I did not buy it, yes, I would have to ask for one at budget time.
All right.
And this truck might not be available then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to keep track of when we do budgets, at all the financial reports that you're given, you've got at the very last page gives you where you've increased the budget, and it gives you an item what you increased it for. So when it comes budget time, if you want to keep track of it, you can look back at that latest financial you have, and it'll give you the budget resolution number and what was purchased.
Right. Oh, I want to do that, but I don't want to make it a punishment.
Oh, you want to make it a punishment?
Don't want to make it.
Oh, you don't want to make it a
Don't want to
punishment?
make it a punishment.
Okay. Well, I was just, Councilmember Vapurzian was saying he didn't remember these, but that's a way to help refresh your memory. So,
Right.
Councilmember Saunders?
Thank you, Mayor. I know I keep preaching this at budget meetings for the last 8 years, but there is nothing more important than the safety of the citizens. You can close everything else in this town down. Safety is our safety is provided typically via the police and the fire. And the police and the fire is over 50% of our budget, as you've seen so many times, because they require a lot of money. A lot of it's vehicles. Now, I just made my soapbox. A question for you, Chief. Do you anticipate this year, we bought, what was it, 2 years ago, an engine? And do you anticipate any apparatus this year in budget?
As far as engines?
Unless there's a breakdown, I understand that.
Right, yeah. No engines are planned for this coming year.
Okay, you're not anticipating any big expenses?
I certainly hope not.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
I move that we approve Resolution 2018-24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 2018-24. Is there a discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next item is 2018 Elected Officials Salary Committee. Ordinance number 811 requires that I set an elected officials salary committee to discuss this compensation of elected officials in the city of Maumelle. The committee shall be appointed by the mayor and shall include at least 4 citizens and 2 members of the city council. The committee shall analyze the compensation of all elected officials in the city of Maumelle and thereafter make certain recommendations to the city council concerning the same prior to the finalization of the budget for the following year. So I passed out the list of the names of the committee that at your seat. And what I will say is Mr. Scott Grummer, who is in the audience, and Mr. Jeff Van Patten have served on that committee, I know, for at least 2 times, and maybe longer than that, but I know at least 2 times they've served on it. And Marion Scott was also a member as a citizen on the 2014 committee. And so that's kind of how I came up with this, was I want some continuity of people that had been on the committee in the past. And I asked Councilmember Saunders, now I've made him chair since I asked him, but he only has to be chair for the first meeting if he doesn't want it, and then he can pass it on to somebody else. And then I also asked Mr. Wallace Montgomery to serve. Mr. Montgomery applied for the Ward 2 position when Councilmember Scott was appointed as a young man, and he wanted to get involved in the community. And so I feel like this is a way to do that. And then Joshua Price is another young person, because I think we need to get a little bit younger blood, because not speaking for the 2 on each side of me, but just about everybody else in here is got a little bit of gray in their hair. So we need to work on that, and that's a pledge that the Municipal League asked us to take earlier this year, was try to involve more young people in our government and things like that. So hopefully this will get them going. But Mr. Price ran for state representative in the primaries, and he did not get that, so I figured he had some free time on his hands. So, but what I told everybody too was, this is a short-term commitment. This is not like the sign committee, because you got to have a decision made and get it back to us so we can get it into the budget for this year. So hopefully 2 months should wrap this thing up. And y'all, I also told everyone that asked that Councilmember Saunders will be contacting about their first meeting and all. So hopefully y'all can, and I don't know if he's even in the audience, but Jared Azone, our HR director, will be the liaison. There he is, he's outside. He'll be the liaison to this committee, so don't abuse him, but you get to use him as far as asking information that you need. But as like any other committee meeting, it's open to the public, so. Councilmember Scott?
I was wondering if HR Director Azone was going to provide us with the comp salary like we had at the last one.
He and I talked about that last week, and so, yes, he will be providing you with the comp salaries as far, you talking about comparable cities?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. That was helpful.
How long do you anticipate that'll take?
I have the 2017 salary study that was done out from the municipal league already on my desk.
Okay.
So I've got all the cities that participated in that study already ready.
Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, just a question. If they make a recommendation and the council approves it, when will it become effective?
It'd become effective January 1 of next year, unless y'all choose to do something different.
Of 2019?
Of 2019, yes, sir.
So we'd have those figures for budget.
For budget, yeah.
Yeah, and even though we put the figures in the budget, it will require ordinances to change the salaries. And my recommendation is we use separate ordinances. That way, you don't, if you want to revise one of them or something like that, you don't mess up the other one. So you do one for each position that you have. Now, you will not be looking at the judge's salary because that's set by state law. So you will not be looking at that, and they will not be recommending that because that's set by state law. But the mayor, the city clerk, the city attorney, and then the city council salaries is what they'll be looking at. So I would recommend 4 ordinances. The city attorney may tell me it'd be better to do it all as one, but the last time we did them all separately, as separate ordinances. So the council would have to pass that ordinance because it requires the ordinance to change the salary because that's how the previous salaries have been set. Even though you budgeted the money in the budget, it still would require the ordinance.
Yeah, thank you.
But, and I think, and I didn't read it, doesn't actually say when it becomes effective in the ordinance, but that's how it's always been in the past, is January 1 of next year. Any other questions on the elected officials salary committee? All right. Next item is election of President pro tempore for the August 20th council meeting. I will be unable to attend that meeting. I think this is going to be the first time in 11 and a half years that I've missed 2 meetings in the same year. But Councilmember Anderson served in that position back in the month of June. But I need someone else to step up and serve in that position for the August 20th meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate Steve Mosley to step into that position as one of the longer-term council members.
Second that.
I'm not entirely sure I'm going to be at the next meeting.
Oh, that's what I would have said.
Yeah. I read your mind.
I was sick that day.
So I would like to pass it this time. Thank you so much.
Dog
So-
ate your homework.
Yeah.
You better not show up now.
I don't know. If I'm in town, I'm showing up. But it's about 50-50, so.
Okay. So do you withdraw your motion?
Yeah,
I'll withdraw.
thank you. Thank you, Marion.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to nominate Ken Saunders as President Pro Tem.
Do I hear a second?
second.
We have a motion and a second for Councilmember Saunders to serve as the President pro tempore for August the 20th.
I don't mind. I've done it before. Yeah. Several times.
All right. So is there any discussion on that motion? Councilmember Holt?
Well, I was going to nominate Anderson by acclamation that he be not only to serve this one, but serve the capacity throughout the rest of the election term. But I will gladly accept Saunders as the, Alderman Saunders for the nomination.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Councilmember Saunders as President Pro Tem. Any discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Motion passes.
And that's the next meeting?
That is the next meeting, yes, sir. Be 2 weeks from tonight. Moving on to mayor's comments. I think it was 2 weeks ago, I got like either phone calls or several emails from several people regarding Victoria Circle Drainage Project. And so I passed out an estimate that the engineers have made for the Victoria Circle Drainage Project. It's $136,000. It's what that drainage would require. That's been a drainage issue for as long as I've been mayor, but we could never make a very good determination of how to solve the situation, but the engineers kept looking at it. We did a lot of utility locations, having one call come out and locate where utilities were, and shooting grades, and they think that we can make this work by putting in 1,300 feet of pipe, basically. No, excuse me, 610 foot of pipe, 1,300 foot of saw cut, because we've got to put it down the roadway, coming from two different directions. Victoria Circle was built before we were an active city, I will say that. And so the plans weren't reviewed real well. There's 2 drainage boxes in the entire subdivision. They're on the southeast corner, and the entire subdivision is too flat. The streets are too flat. And so we're having to add 4 new boxes. I believe that's correct.
Is that it?
Yeah, 4 new boxes, and then add the pipe, and then it'll drain to the southern edge. There's a swell and a ditch, basically, that drains it right now, but the problem is the ditch at Arnold Palmer is not deep enough to have enough adequate fall in that swell. I guess they tried the swell back 25 years ago or something like that, but it just continues to get blocked up because there's no fall to it at all, and so it continues to get blocked up and it doesn't drain. But what this doesn't include, after that drainage work is all done, we'd have to do a street overlay over the entire roadway, especially the area that we have dug up. And
Do we have an estimate on the overlay?
I do not have an estimate on the overlay, but we have $75,000 in our total budget to do drainage, and that's to try to do drainage projects all over town at $10,000 or $20,000 a pop. And so we don't have adequate money in our budget currently to do this. And so my recommendation is that the council take this up in the budget process and go forward with that for the 2019 budget. Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I've been down there and looked at it. I've been down there 2 or 3 times, and I've seen it. Right now, it doesn't have any water there in the street, but it's just because we've had dry weather. But normally, it's a big puddle, and it's kind of an eyesore and a mess and everything. And it looks like and I don't, and that's kind of my question: is that the only problem we've got? Is just that accumulation of water there? Is there other reasons to just completely do the whole thing like that? In other words, if it would fix the problem that's bothering people and unless their houses are being flooded, I think that the little cement ditch that heads off toward the boulevard, there's a little rise in it, and if you could just smooth that down, I think all that water would drain off, if that's the only problem we're having there.
I mean, our engineers have looked at it, and they're not recommending that, because your water is all coming from other areas of the subdivision seeking its way there. And I think you're always wind up with water standing in the curb and gutter unless you can capture it before it gets to that swell area. So there's drainage that's being put west of where the existing pipes are also,
Okay.
and north. So,
Is there anybody in the audience that's familiar with that tonight or going to speak or anything? I'd just be curious as to what they view the biggest problem with all that.
well, Mr. Hogan is here. I don't know if he's prepared to speak on it tonight or not. He's our Public Works Director, but
We got one gentleman right here, it looks like.
he needs to fill out a public comment card then.
Run out and grab one of those little,
No, Mike, you're fine, yeah. Mike, I mean, you've looked at it, I know you've looked at it several times.
I have. It's a bad situation. The way that it's designed, I think, is the only way it's going to work properly. The asphalt's flaking up beside the curb because the curb and gutter is, holding water. If we do the overlay after the job is done, we can slope it, crown it, and having the extra manholes will catch the water better and channel it out to that low part.
okay, and I assume the little cement ditch would go away at that point and you'd be able to have
It
the
would.
street level there and all that
Yes.
stuff. Where does that water currently drain? Does it drain out there to the boulevard and end up in that ditch?
It does. It goes out to the boulevard, and actually it kind of drains both ways, but it drains more toward Arnold Palmer.
Okay,
And all that is flat, so it drains slow.
all right, thank you.
Councilmember Saunders, was your question for Mr. Hogan? or-
Oh, well, no, it wasn't.
Okay, all right. Is yours, Councilmember? Okay, all right, hold on then, all right. Councilmember Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just trying to get a better understanding. So having those 4 different curb boxes, drop-ins, they will give us the opportunity to capture the water before it all collects in that one area, correct? That's the whole idea, is that we're, instead of putting a Band-Aid effect by redredging that drain that's existing, we're going to put in 4, we're going to basically put in the drainage that should have been put in before to collect that water that's rushing down and collecting at that spot. Is that correct?
Right, and there's a half cul-de-sac in one corner of that. I don't know which. North,
East,
south,
west,
east.
north.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Do you know?
Now, where the existing drainage is the southeast corner.
Okay, the half cul-de-sac where it holds the water the most, I know there's 2 drop inlets that will go in there that will channel the water out of that cul-de-sac that
So
holds
we'll
the
never
water so
even
much.
get to that spot.
Right, and channel it on out to the low end.
2 of the boxes will go where the existing swell goes across the road at.
Right.
So 2 of the boxes will go there, and then 2 other boxes will go 206 feet west of where the existing curb inlets are now. So they would go west of there, toward the other half cul-de-sac that I think Mike's referring to.
Right.
Yeah.
And far as the asphalt overlay, we haven't done any, I haven't done the footage or the tonnage on that to know, exactly what the asphalt would be.
And I'm glad you asked that, because my next question was, is that something that would have to be covered under the project, or can we cover that under our normal
Be under the
road
normal
street fine?
overlay.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Okay, there any questions for Mr. Hogan?
Yeah, I've got one more.
Okay, all right.
Has there been any flooding in that neighborhood? Has houses, garages, anything been flooded as a result of that situation?
Not that I'm aware of. It's just.
So it does drain it, and really the biggest problem is it leaves that puddle. Is that
Yeah,
the main thing?
and the
damage.
water standing in the curbs, in numerous spots all the way
has-
around Victoria.
Okay, it stands in other places?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And that's what's leading to the asphalt deterioration along the curb.
I did
Yeah,
notice that.
and that's the reason for putting the extra drop inlets in.
Alrighty.
But
Okay.
to the best of my knowledge, a house is not flooded in there. The good thing is at least the houses are higher than the streets, which is not the case in every neighborhood we have,
Right.
so.
Yeah. Could we hear
Yeah,
public comment?
yeah. Mr. McGrath? If you would, state your name and address for the record, please.
Mike McGrath, 15 Victoria Circle. And I live in the deepest spot on the whole circle. It all drains right there, that ditch in front of my house. And there has not been any flooding at all. But the standing water is leading to the pavement getting all busted up. And it's just an eyesore. It's a place for mosquitoes and everything else. And it's been that way for as long as I've lived there. And I've been there about 24 years. And I've had neighbors who have been there longer than me that saw my house getting built. And of course, it was done incorrectly when it was first put in. So it's time to get it fixed.
Yeah.
It's time. You know, it's been 34 years now. So it's time to get it fixed. And I know you can't do it immediately, maybe even this year, and that's fine. But if that's on the project list, and I understood the respected Mr. Cogdell had that on his list or whatever, and then that project died with him, I guess. I don't know.
Well, it didn't die with him. It's just
Okay.
we kept trying to find a solution for it.
Okay.
And it took a little bit longer to come up with something than we did because, I mean, yes, Robert came and looked at it. Robert took me out there several times, and we kept on our engineers, and part of the thing is we're also putting in the streets so we're not cutting everybody's driveway too, because we're afraid if we start cutting a lot of driveways, we may encounter some wet soil conditions under there. So based on the recommendations of the engineers, because of utilities and driveways, we're staying out in the city streets so that we're responsible for that. So, yeah.
The solution sounds really good in terms of even eliminating that drainage ditch that's in front of my house. That's the solution. That's the fix.
Right. And you're right. Anytime there's water ponding, it's a chance at this time of year for mosquitoes to breed in that area.
But if you can get it in your next budget process, that'd be fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath.
Don't go.
No, he's got a question.
Yeah, I think he has a question for you, so you got to go up here, yeah. Stay at the mic so that they can hear you on the video that we're making.
Okay.
Councilmember Saunders?
Thank you. You kind of beat me to it when you turned the slip in to talk, because I was going to ask you to come up here and talk, because
Okay.
we talked a couple of times about this.
Yes,
And one of the questions I was going to ask, Alderman Mosley already asked about flooding, but I would like to be a little more specific, because when you say have houses been flooded, flooded is a somewhat subjective word. What's flooding to me might not be to you, and vice versa. So I'll ask that question in a different way. Do you know of any, and if you told me in our conversations, I've forgotten. You know, I'm getting old. So does water run across people's yards there? Is that a problem?
No.
It's exclusively
ponding,
street and drain.
accumulation and ponding.
Okay.
Like my backyard becomes a solid lake, a complete pond. There's no dry dirt in my whole backyard whatsoever.
Okay.
And that's yard flooding. And there's flooding in front of my house, and it gets high enough that I move my vehicle so that the water doesn't enter my vehicle parked in the street.
So
it gets, that deep.
Like that deep?
But it's temporary and it runs off. But it's a continuing problem.
But it's never gotten in your house?
No, not anywhere close,
You're
no.
lucky there.
Yep.
Pretty deep water.
I'm the deepest spot in the circle.
Are there other people, either contiguous to you or down the street, that are also experiencing standing water and heavy rains?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, that's all I had. I was just curious.
Sure.
That makes
Okay.
a difference. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Councilmember Timmons?
All right, Mike, I've spoken with you a couple times too, and I want to thank you. He's where we got the photos from.
Oh, okay, good.
Those are my pictures.
Those are your
All
pictures?
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, thank you. They
They're
came out
helpful.
better than the ones I took.
Okay. And thank you for bringing this up. Appreciate that.
Okay, so
Keep on a lookout.
this will be in your budget package when it comes out in October. Is that what I'm hearing everybody would prefer or wants
Yes.
to do?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Something to consider this year, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, all right. Yeah, it's going to be in there, so yes. And I've got a couple other things. One that I had has already been discussed, but it's the road initiate courts. And what I do want to say is I was not aware of the situation until last Tuesday afternoon. So that's when I was made aware of the situation at courts. And I think we've done well to get estimates and everything else to this point. But after going back down there again today, and I've been down there almost every day since last Tuesday, going back down there today, I did see that we had a significant issue over in the old jail area. Is where it actually is occurring at. And so I think the best thing to do is to move them there, because what I don't want to do is throw good money after bad and spend money in that building, and then we move them out of there in another few months anyway or whatever. So what I may be coming back with is we're going to still do some temporary stuff to try to secure the building, because there's some holes in the back and some things like that. We're going to do that to make sure that it doesn't deteriorate anymore, even though I don't think anybody's going to use that building for anything. But then I may come back to the council with a request that the council allow us to market that piece of property and put it on the market. So probably be coming back the 1st of September, or a meeting in September, since I won't be here at the next meeting. But that would be what I would like to do with that. Also, the interchange project, the bid opening has been delayed until October the 24th. And the reason for that is that the right-of-way, they're still trying to finalize the right-of-way documents, and they have to have everything done at least 4 weeks prior to the bid in order to publish it. And so that is August the 14th. And I talked to the programming director at the Highway Department, Jared Wiley, last week, and then I talked to Jennifer Williams, who's in right-of-way today. She's the right-of-way the head of right-of-way division. And she said that, yeah, they just didn't feel comfortable that they could get everything worked out by the 14th of August, but she felt confident that it wouldn't move beyond October the 24th.
Does that mean we're going to be able to break ground before the end of the year?
Well,
and I know you don't have a crystal ball, but does it look like we can do that?
It looks like we can, yes. I'd actually already met with the Public Affairs Department last week, as a matter of fact, and we were setting a date in October to do a groundbreaking. And so we can probably still do that, but what the Highway Department doesn't do is they don't count time against the contractor, usually from November through February, because that's usually not a good time to work. So the contractor may or may not mobilize, but we could still do a groundbreaking even before the contractor mobilized. So, and that'll be up to the Highway Department, because they will handle all that.
I think it's important that the citizens see that we're not sitting on this.
Right.
They gave us the money. I would like to be able to show them, look, we're moving on this.
Right, right.
So,
And AT&T has things to move too. Maybe they'll want to get that out of the way.
Yeah, and the last 2 times I've been out to the site, the utility people from the Highway Department have been out there too, and they were waiting on AT&T one day to meet with them. So they're working on that also. So, yeah, the utility relocations, yeah. Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I just wanted to verify, I guess we're done as far as anything we're having to do. We've passed the bonds. We should have the bond money available. I don't know if it goes into an escrow or what, but in other words, we're done. That big old long 82-point list that you had you got them all ticked off. Is that correct?
Now, I hadn't looked at that in a while. If construction is on it, then no, we hadn't ticked that one off. But as far as the 100% design plans, that's been turned in. All that.
Everything we have to do, any more approvals, it's all
Right.
done.
To the best of my knowledge, it is. Now, the one thing that hasn't happened, the bond has not closed yet. That's August the 29th. So that's basically done in New York City, and we just sit here in Little Rock on the phone. But we authorized the closing to take place, and that's something that I do, not the council necessarily. You've approved the documents at the last council meeting, and so that's, so that's still left to do. But the money will be available August the 29th.
Okay.
So then it would be given to the Highway Department then once the bids are received, and then they would take care of it during the construction project.
Okay.
Councilmember Scott?
I did want to say that a spokesperson for the state was giving incorrect information in public meetings. And some of that information was coming back to me that made it sound like the project was 50-50 chance of not happening, that we didn't have rights of way, we didn't have permits, we needed wetland permits and all of those kinds of things. And when I talked to the mayor about it, he called that individual, and that person just was misinformed. He had not been informed by the people on his team what was going on. He didn't even know Counts Massey was completed. So if those kinds of rumors were out there and you were hearing that kind of thing, it was very upsetting to some of the citizens who heard it and reported it back to me. So I'm glad we got that straightened out, and thank you for following up on that.
And I called that gentleman the day Councilmember Scott called me. He's like, well, y'all hadn't even finished Counts Massey yet. I said, we finished it last October. And he said, what? I'm going to drive out there this weekend then. So, yeah, he was just misinformed. He said he had not been given correct information from his personnel. So, and you know, I know how that is. I mean, I hear information from 3 people sometimes. I still don't have the right information. So, and that's happened recently. So, but sometimes you got to go see it for yourself. And then the other thing I needed to mention is Miss Courtney Dunn, who has been my executive assistant, has been given, she's not here tonight. She asked off, but, or asked to be able to leave this meeting, but she's been appointed the executive director of the Jacksonville Chamber. And so her last day will be this Friday. And so since I am not running for mayor, I will probably not replace that position. That's the plan right now, and let the incoming mayor take care of that. Now she handles the website too, so we may struggle a little bit, and we may even try to find somebody on a temporary basis to try to do the website. But I can take care of myself some days. Ms. Dunn did a great job for me though, and kept a lot of stuff off of me. So my life will get a little bit more hectic for the next 4.5 months or whatever. But I wish her well, because this is a really good opportunity for her. And if you happen to have the newspaper, she was written up in River Valley section and then the Three Rivers section edition, yesterday's paper. So, but I wish her the best of luck, and it's a great opportunity for her. So, all right, I'll move on. I'll get off the mayor's comments finally. Planning Commission report, and that's Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. They had no old business. They had just 3 items on their new business, 2 of which came before us and we passed, which was the conditional use permit for the church and the proposed addition to Carnahan Village, and then the third one is just the preliminary development plan for Carnahan Village. So they were all passed unanimously, with, I think there was only 1 member that wasn't in attendance. So I think that was Mr. Ramsey. And that's all I have for the Planning Commission.
All right, thank you. Councilmember comments? Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I went to an RDOT hearing over in West Little Rock that they had a couple of weeks ago, and they were discussing and showing the plans for that redo from about Pleasant Valley Drive all the way down to where Walton Heights Road goes up there, and it's quite a thing. I can't remember now how much it costs, but it's a lot of money. And but what they're doing is they're eliminating Rodney Parham. They're eliminating that intersection, Rodney Parham and Cantrell. Cantrell will actually go over what's now currently the intersection. And so anybody on Cantrell doesn't have to stop there, and that'll remove some of the bottlenecks.
That's good.
And I'm not sure, I haven't ever driven that in the morning, but I've heard stories that people are trying to get off on the Cantrell exit and it gets backed up down to the bridge. That should really help that, I would think. And
that's smart.
So anyway, they've got quite a deal. They're utilizing a traffic circle and all kind, and Texas roundabouts. The mayor and
turnaround.
I used to harass the mayor about trying to get Texas turnarounds on the boulevard, and he didn't like them as much as I did.
Yeah, I like them.
I like the name.
What is a Texas turnaround?
What that is You can, if you're going one
U-turn.
way, you know, if you get off of Cantrell, you can go west, and then you go under the bridge where it goes over Cantrell, and you can do a U-turn without having to
They
stop.
have that on Shackelford too.
Pardon?
I think they have one similar like that in Shackelford and the Interstate 630.
They do.
You can
yeah.
turn
It's
around.
Under it's under the bridge right
Under
there.
the bridge.
So anyway, they're doing that, and I think it's from both directions, so
Yeah.
try to eliminate people from having to sit in a stoplight.
Steve
Anyway.
wanted me to build them in North Little Rock. That was the
Anyway, that's all.
We
I've
can't even
got.
get traffic
Thank you.
lights done.
Councilmember Vapurzian.
I want to thank Mr. Hogan again for help with an issue. Got to sit under the teaching of Mr. Grummer this past week, community development course, and it was very, very good, and took us on a bus tour, and just some amazing things as far as community development in Little Rock, just really encouraging. Miss Alicia Gillen was voted the Year 2 champion at the CDI up at UCA this past week, exhibiting leadership for that class, and then I had the opportunity to graduate from CDI at UCA this last week, and I appreciate the mayor allowing me to be a part of the Community Development Institute.
You mean I could have kept you out?
Every year I go, I'm just overwhelmed with what I don't know in community and economic development. There is so much. And to meet with, in our class, when you spend 3 years with a group of people, 35, 40 people, you build a lot of common relationships. And there are some people with ultimate passion like you cannot believe for community development. And it is really inspiring to be with a group of people like that for an entire week. I was not made to sit in a class for 8.5 hours a day, though. Right. This I do know. So I was glad to go, and I'm very glad that it's over. And I'm glad I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, there's several people that work for the city that have been to CDI. It's a very, very good program, and I know Ms. Hogue went to it, and then now Councilmember Vapurzian and Ms. Timmons has been to it, and Courtney's been to it, and Judy's been to it, and I've been to it. So it's a very good program. Probably missing somebody else that's attended it. Councilmember Williams.
Okay, back to the issue of drainage. I was just wanting to know what the status was. I've seen some equipment out there at the corner of Highway 100 and Odom. I wondered if that was.
That's not our equipment.
That's not ours.
That's a cable company that's still boring in that area. She's talking about the drainage that off Hogan down there, Mike. We've got that on the schedule to get done. We're just.
Yeah, kind of waiting for the contractor to get out of the way and see if we can get it cleaned up.
I saw it had dried up a little bit over there, I guess, because we haven't had a whole lot.
We
of
hadn't had a
rain.
whole lot of rain, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, but
Thank you.
it's on the schedule to get done, and yeah, like I say, there's a bunch of equipment parked there, but it's not our equipment.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Hope.
Visited with, as I'm knocking on doors to get signatures, visited with two people from the Garden Oaks area. We did such an outstanding job of the alleyways that they have a new problem now. People are speeding through the alleyways. So they have, kids out there and people out there and whatever. So they're going to be asking for maybe some kind of something to get the traffic to slow down going through the alleyways. And then I kept Mike Hogan on the phone. We have the second house before you go into Garden Oaks Cove. The gentleman, Mr. Risser, stopped me, and he has some flooding still during the rain events that he has to have sandbags and whatever to keep the water out of his yard and house and all that kind of stuff. So I discussed it with Mike, and the gentleman will make his mind up about who to talk to and when. But that's all. Thank you.
Are there any other council members' comments? Mr. City Attorney?
Nothing.
Madam City Clerk?
Just bringing everyone's attention that we do have an open seat on the Civil Service Commission. It is to fill a remaining term which expires in May of next year. It will be advertised in the North Little Rock Times tomorrow. So if you know of anyone who is interested, please encourage them to apply. That's it, Mayor.
There's no other comments, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I hear s- All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Meeting is adjourned.
Terry Williams.
Marion, on this salary committee, where did you